Why was everyone laughing at her? The sound carried through the concrete training hall like small, cruel echoes. It started as a single chuckle and grew into a ripple, the kind of uneasy laughter people use to hide discomfort. Every cadet standing along the observation deck could feel it. No one wanted to be the first to stop laughing, because the man who started it was Sergeant First Class Evans. And Evans was the kind of man you didn't cross. He stood at the center of the room, barrel-chested, hands planted on his hips, wearing that permanent smirk he'd perfected over years of authority. His words dripped with confidence and cruelty. "Someone get this a chair," he said loudly, nodding toward the woman by the control console. "Last thing we need is her breaking a hip trying to teach real soldiers how to fight." A few cadets laughed again, softer this time, unsure. The echo of it hit the walls and died, leaving behind a silence so sharp it almost hummed. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Her fingers continued dancing across the holographic display, fluid, deliberate, precise. The woman didn't even look at him. Colonel Davies, watching quietly from the corner of the room, saw what the others missed. Her posture wasn't the stillness of someone defeated. It was the stillness of someone utterly in control. The way she stood, weight balanced perfectly through both legs, legs that weren't flesh anymore. The polished matte surface of carbon fiber caught the cold blue glow of the screens. Her name was Sharma. To most of the cadets, she was a civilian contractor, an outsider brought in to oversee a simulation exercise in the Crucible, the Academy's most advanced combat training arena. But to Evans, she was an intrusion, a disruption, something that didn't fit into the neat order of his world. He smirked again, louder this time, letting his voice fill the hall. "With all due respect, ma'am," he said, turning the word ma'am into something poisonous, "we're training fighters here, not analysts. These cadets need to learn from soldiers who have been there, who have done it, not from someone who," he gestured vaguely to her legs, "couldn't hack it." Another silence, heavy, awkward. You could hear the hum of the lights. Someone shifted their boots. Still, she said nothing. Her focus stayed on the display, a maze of moving tactical icons, simulation layers, mission parameters. Every input she entered was calm, efficient, exact. To her, the room didn't exist. To her, this moment wasn't a confrontation. It was irrelevant. And yet somehow, that silence spoke louder than his shouting ever could. Evans paced, feeding on his own noise. "Combat's not theory," he said, raising his voice for the cadets. "It's sweat. It's muscle memory. It's carrying your brother on your back when he's bleeding out. You can't teach that from behind a console." The cadets nodded, young faces trying to look hard. They believed him because they'd been taught to. They'd been told strength was volume, dominance, size. They'd been told leadership shouted. Anna finished her calibration. A soft chime echoed from her station. She didn't turn, didn't react, just placed one last command, then folded her hands behind her back. Her silence made the air colder. Colonel Davies saw it, that moment of invisible authority shifting from the loud to the quiet. He didn't intervene. He wanted the cadets to see this play out. Some lessons needed to hurt before they could stick. Evans finally gestured at her console. "Fine, you can run the OP4, he said. "That means opposition forces, for those of you who need the translation. Should be simple enough for you to handle. Just try not to trip over any cables." More laughter. Anna adjusted the cooling sleeve around her prosthetic knee, a simple motion, technical, almost mechanical. But to the untrained eye it looked fragile, vulnerable, and that illusion was what they clung to. Only the colonel noticed how the sensors along her prosthetics glowed faintly, syncing with the facility floor. She wasn't standing on it, she was interfacing with it, feeling its pulse. He'd read her file, what little of it wasn't blacked out, and that was enough to make him both wary and deeply respectful. The cadets began suiting up for the simulation. Evans clapped his hands together, loud and commanding again. "All right, people, Alpha Squad, you're up. Mission parameters: hostage rescue, 3rd floor, East Wing. Standard engagement. Make it clean, make it fast. Let's set a record. He looked over his shoulder at Anna, one last smirk twisting his mouth. Let's show our guest how real soldiers move. Anna didn't look up. Her screen flickered. One icon blinked red. Op4 control engaged. And the simulation began. Down below, the squad moved like clockwork. 6 cadets flowing into the mock city complex, rifles raised, formation tight. They breached the first door in perfect synchronization. Flashbang, sweep, clear. Evans's grin widened. Textbook, he said proudly. Look at that. They own the room before the smoke clears. Maximum aggression, total control. Anna's fingers hovered over her interface. Still, poised. Her breathing didn't change. She was waiting for something, a moment the others didn't even know existed yet. 30 seconds in, something strange happened. Miller, the lead cadet, tapped his comms. Command, we lost signal. Audio's dead. Static hissed through their earpieces. Evans frowned. Minor glitch, he muttered. Keep moving. But Anna had already executed a command sequence. Her screen pulsed once, a ghost code traveling through the simulation network. She hijacked their comms, not to silence them but to speak through them. A faint sound echoed in the squad's headsets, the quiet sobbing of a woman. Then a distant clatter, metal scraping concrete, a rifle barrel dragging, a whisper in an unknown language. Left corridor, Miller signaled. Move. 2 cadets peeled off, breaching left. Empty room, nothing. Anna's hands moved again. She didn't blink. The lights above the squad flickered and went dark. The night vision goggles snapped on, and instantly the world exploded into blinding pulses of white. The squad staggered, blind, disoriented. Evans's jaw tightened. What the hell is that? No answer. Only the glow of blue across Anna's face reflected from her screen. She was calm, surgical, almost serene. She's blinding them, one cadet whispered from the observation deck. She's using their own NVGs against them. Evans didn't reply. He couldn't. Down below, chaos had taken over. The perfectly synchronized assault dissolved into confusion. Cadets shouting over jammed comms, boots stumbling in darkness. Anna didn't spawn a single enemy. She didn't fire a single shot. She weaponized the environment, the light, the sound, their training. She was teaching them something far more brutal than combat. She was teaching them fear. 4 minutes in, Miller tried to regroup. Fall back to breach point, he ordered, his voice shaking. But when they turned, the door had sealed, steel shutters, locked. Evans's hands clenched into fists. She's trapped them in. Then, for the first time in the simulation, red icons appeared on the display, 6 hostile units descending from the roof. Not through the door, through the windows. The attack came like lightning. In under 20 seconds, the cadets were down. 6 red icons, 0 survivors. The silence that followed was suffocating. Evans's voice broke the stillness. That's not possible. That's a system glitch. Colonel Davies didn't look away from the screen. No, Sergeant, that's skill. Evans turned toward Anna. What did you do? For the first time, she lifted her gaze. Calm, cold, her eyes met his. Nothing in her face changed. No smirk, no triumph, only quiet certainty. Her silence said everything. And for the first time, Evans had nothing to say. The colonel stepped forward, his boots echoing against the floor. Computer, he said, his voice sharp, pull up Instructor Sharma's file. Authorization, Davies Delta V1. The main display flickered. The simulation report vanished, replaced by a classified personnel file. Override, Davies commanded. Tier 1 clearance. Redacted lines dissolved. The first visible phrase made the air leave the room. Joint Special Operations Command, Task Force 11. Every cadet froze. Evans went pale. Task Force 11, the ghost unit. The one whispered about in military history, the unit that never officially existed. The screen kept scrolling. Operation summaries, dozens of commendations, citations, medals, then a call sign. Codename Nix. Someone exhaled sharply. Nix, the myth, the phantom, the name that lived in rumors, and she was standing right there. Anna didn't react. She just waited quietly as her own history shattered their perception of her. Davies read one line aloud, his voice steady. Operation Spartan Hammer. Sustained catastrophic injuries while defending extraction point. Actions directly responsible for the survival of SEAL Team 3. Evans's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He'd served under that team once. The men she'd saved might have been his friends. Davies turned toward her and straightened his back. Then, slowly, he saluted. It wasn't protocol, it was reverence. "Instructor Sharma," he said softly, "my apologies for any lack of respect. It will not happen again." Evans's eyes fell to the floor. The cadets' silence was a mix of awe and shame. The loudest man in the room had just been erased by the quietest. No one laughed now. And as Anna returned to her console, the myth of the loud sergeant died quietly, replaced by the beginning of something else. A legend. Because sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, and the world listens. No one spoke for a long time. The silence after her victory wasn't relief, it was recalibration. The cadets stood in quiet disbelief, the hum of the control consoles filling the space that once belonged to arrogance. On every screen, the data glowed mercilessly clear. Alpha Squad eliminated. Kills. 6 casualties. Sergeant Evans stood perfectly still. His jaw worked once, but no sound came out. The muscles along his neck twitched like a man struggling to swallow something heavy and impossible. Anna Sharma said nothing. She just watched the system finish its diagnostics, her hands folded calmly behind her back, the faint light catching along the dark carbon weave of her prosthetics. Her breathing was measured, controlled. Colonel Davies turned away from the display. "That concludes the exercise," he said simply, though his voice carried like an order. The words landed with finality. "Debrief in 1 hour." He didn't look at Evans. Didn't need to. The sergeant stood like a man whose certainty had been pulled out from under him. The cadets didn't move at first. No one wanted to be the first to leave. They just stood there, watching her. The woman who had dismantled a team of elite trainees without firing a shot. When she finally turned, her gaze brushed past them without malice or triumph, as though none of this was a victory at all, merely a result. Cause and effect. Logic, precision. That was the first time most of them understood something fundamental. She wasn't competing. She was demonstrating. Evans found his voice, low and strained. "You set them up to fail." Anna stopped, her back still to him. Her head turned slightly, not enough to see her face, just enough to make the silence feel like judgment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but each word was sharp enough to cut. "I gave them reality, Sergeant." He took a step toward her. That wasn't training, that was humiliation. Now she did turn. Her expression was still neutral, no anger, no satisfaction. "War doesn't care about pride," she said. "It only cares who adapts first." Evans looked ready to answer, but nothing came out. The weight of truth was too much to lift. She turned back to her console, disconnected her data pad, and walked toward the exit. Each step was measured, deliberate. The soft mechanical hum of her prosthetics filled the silence she left behind. The cadets watched her go, the faint reflection of her silhouette sliding across the polished floor like a shadow separating from its source. When the doors hissed shut behind her, someone finally exhaled. "Was that real?" a cadet whispered. Evans didn't answer. His eyes were still on the door. He looked smaller now, not physically, something deeper, like his presence had shrunk inside itself. Colonel Davies moved toward the exit last, his tone calm but firm. "Let this sink in," he said. "Every assumption you had in this room was wrong. Every one." Then he paused at the door, glancing back once. "Remember this day, gentlemen, not because you watched someone win, but because you learned how easily you could lose." He left them with that. Word of what had happened traveled faster than any official report. By the end of the day, the story had mutated into whispers, carried across mess halls and barracks, each retelling slightly exaggerated. In one version, she'd hacked the entire simulation network mid-run. In another, she'd rewritten the scenario code live while Evans was still bragging. Someone even swore they'd seen her control the facility just by thought. By nightfall, she had already stopped being a person. She was a legend in motion. Evans didn't eat dinner. He sat in his office, lights dim, staring at the blank report screen in front of him. His reflection stared back, tired eyes, jaw tight, pride fractured. He'd spent his whole career believing that toughness came from loud certainty, that leadership was dominance, that fear was control. But the woman had taken all of that from him, without even raising her voice. He replayed her words in his head. War doesn't care about pride. It only cares who adapts first. The truth of it stung, because it fit perfectly into the cracks of everything he'd believed. At dawn the next day, the cadets gathered outside the crucible for morning drills. The air was sharp with cold, the ground still wet from an overnight rain. Evans arrived late, unheard of for him. His usual booming voice was gone. No sarcastic jokes, no barked commands, just a clipped, quiet form up. They moved through the motions, an obstacle course, sprints, weapons checks, but something in the rhythm had changed. He wasn't correcting mistakes anymore. He was watching, studying. And when one cadet tripped during a vault, Evans didn't yell. He knelt beside him and said quietly, "Recover, adapt, that's what she'd do." No one asked who he meant, they all knew. Anna didn't come to the morning drills. She was in the data center compiling post-simulation analysis. Rows of monitors cast a soft blue light across her face. On one screen, biometric readouts scrolled, 6 heart rates spiking during fear response. On another, communication failure logs. She studied each line like an autopsy. Colonel Davies approached quietly, setting a mug of coffee beside her. "You broke them hard," he said. She didn't look up. "Better here than out there." He watched her for a moment. "You realize what you did yesterday changed more than you think." Her eyes flicked toward him, calm. "Change doesn't happen from noise, Colonel. It happens from consequence." He smiled faintly, "Still quoting doctrine even after you rewrote it." She returned to her screen. "Doctrine gets people killed. Observation saves them." He nodded, thoughtful. "You taught that lesson better than any manual ever could." Then he hesitated. "You okay being the center of the storm for a while?" She gave a small shrug. "Storms pass." By the end of the week, they started calling it Sharma's Gauntlet. It wasn't official, not yet, but the name stuck. Every new cadet who entered the crucible walked a little slower past the console where she had stood. Some even glanced at the floor, as if expecting to see her reflection still there. For them, she had become a measuring stick. If you lasted more than 5 minutes in Sharma's Gauntlet, you were doing well. Evans didn't protest the name, not anymore. One afternoon, Colonel Davies called him into his office. The blinds were drawn, the desk clean except for a single data pad. Evans stood at attention, trying to read the colonel's face. Davies gestured to the chair. "Sit down, Sergeant." Evans obeyed. The colonel leaned back, hands clasped. "You embarrassed yourself, your unit, and your uniform last week." Evans's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. "Good," Davies said after a pause, "because that means you finally understand what humility feels like." Evans exhaled slowly. "I do, sir." The colonel studied him for a moment. "You know, I read your record again. You're a damn good soldier, Evans, but you've been confusing volume with leadership." Evans looked down. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "I thought I was teaching them toughness. Turns out I was just teaching them noise." Davies' gaze softened. "Then learn from the one who isn't noise." Evans frowned slightly. "You mean?" "Yes," the colonel nodded. "Work with her. Observe her methods. She's agreed to stay on contract for 6 months. If you have half the sense I think you do, you'll learn more from her than you did in 20 years of shouting." Evans didn't answer right away. His throat felt tight. "Permission to attend her next debrief, sir." Davies smiled. "Already approved." The next debrief took place 2 days later in a small lecture hall. The cadets filled the seats, notebooks open, eager and nervous. Anna stood at the front beside a large display of tactical overlays. Her teaching style was different. She didn't lecture, she asked questions, quiet ones. "Why did Miller's team lose sight of their objective?" she asked. Silence, then a hesitant answer. "Because their comms failed." No, her tone stayed even. "Because they relied on comms more than instinct. They stopped feeling the field." Her words hung in the air, not dramatic, just true. Evans sat in the back row taking notes. At one point she caught his eye. He expected coldness, maybe contempt. Instead, she just nodded once, acknowledgement, not forgiveness. For the first time in his life, he felt like the student. After the session ended, he approached her. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I was wrong about everything." She looked up from her data pad, acknowledged. "I checked the Spartan Hammer files," he continued, voice low. "2 of the men you saved, they were from my old unit." She didn't react, just waited. "They said they had an angel on Overwatch. Never knew it was you." Her expression stayed calm. "I wasn't an angel, Sergeant, just someone doing her job." He nodded slowly. "Permission to learn how you did it, all of it." She closed her tablet softly. "Then start by unlearning." "Unlearning what?" "The idea that control requires noise." Her words hit deeper than any reprimand ever could. That night, Evans stayed late in the simulation bay, replaying her battle again and again, pausing, analyzing, tracing every decision. For the first time, he didn't see it as a defeat. He saw it as architecture, the blueprint of mastery built on silence and precision. He began incorporating fragments of her philosophy into his own training: drills in darkness, navigation by sound, communication without speech. His cadets thought he'd gone soft, but as the days turned into weeks, they began to realize he was building something else entirely: awareness. And though Evans would never say it aloud, every time he heard the quiet hum of her prosthetics echo through the hallway, he straightened his back a little, out of respect. By the end of the month, the academy was different. You could feel it in the air: less shouting, more focus. The cadets trained quieter, thought deeper. They moved like people who understood the value of stillness. Her influence had started to spread, not by command, but by example. Anna never asked for recognition. She never reminded anyone who she was. She didn't have to. Her silence did that for her. And somewhere in that silence, every cadet found a reflection of what they could become if they stopped speaking long enough to listen. Because sometimes, the loudest transformation begins with a whisper. When the storms of change arrive, they don't shout, they whisper. Weeks had passed since the Crucible incident, yet the echo of that single simulation still lived in every corridor of the academy. The laughter that once filled its halls had turned into something quieter, focused, restrained, almost reverent. They still called it Sharma's Gauntlet, unofficially at first. Then the term appeared on training schedules, briefing boards, even mission reports. No one questioned it. The name had become doctrine. Sergeant Evans moved through the training grounds differently now. The same man who once commanded every room through sheer volume had learned the strange, unsettling power of silence. His voice, once booming, had become measured, deliberate. The cadets noticed. They trained harder because of it. Every morning, He'd begin drills with a phrase that had replaced his old shouts of move, move, move. Now he simply said, observe first, act second. Those words came from her. Anna Sharma hadn't changed her behavior after the incident. She still wore the same black fatigues, still kept her hair tied in a simple knot at the back of her head, still moved with that quiet, ghost-like efficiency. But the air around her had changed. People gave her space, not out of fear, but out of respect. When she entered the crucible, the cadets straightened instinctively, not because she demanded it, because excellence demanded it of them. Colonel Davies had seen many instructors come and go, decorated soldiers, combat veterans, specialists of every discipline, but none of them had altered the spirit of the place like Anna Sharma. He found her one afternoon sitting in the observation deck, alone, reviewing simulation data. The arena below was empty, the modular walls rearranged into a new configuration. You rebuilt the whole map again, he said, leaning on the railing beside her. She didn't look up. Patterns become predictable. Predictability kills. Davies smiled faintly, still teaching lessons through architecture. It's the only way people really learn, she replied. He nodded, thoughtful. Evans has been changing too. You've got him studying your tactics like scripture. Anna's expression remained calm. Good, he's learning to see. Davies turned to her. He used to think leadership was noise. She met his gaze. Now he knows silence leads too. The next rotation of cadets began their crucible phase a week later. A new class, younger faces, eager and overconfident. Among them was one who caught Anna's attention almost immediately, Cadet Lena Torres. 18, top of her class in marksmanship, bottom third in tactical decision-making, physically gifted, mentally rigid. The kind of cadet who believed victory was speed, that hesitation was weakness. Anna recognized the type. She used to be her. Torres stood out because she didn't look intimidated by the stories. When others whispered about Sharma's gauntlet, she rolled her eyes. It's just a simulation, she told her squadmates. No machine can outthink me. Anna overheard the comment in passing. She didn't correct her, not yet. Instead, she marked her file. Observe this one. During the first run, Torres' squad lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds before being wiped out. Not terrible, not impressive. When the simulation ended, Torres slammed her helmet on the bench. The system glitched, she muttered. The comms failed, sensors lagged, no way that was fair. Anna stepped from the shadows of the control booth. Fair. Torres froze. She hadn't realized the instructor had been watching. Anna's voice was calm, almost soft. You think combat is fair? No, ma'am, but... No excuses, Anna interrupted gently. You failed because you were faster than your thoughts. You moved before you understood. Torres frowned. With respect, ma'am, hesitation gets people killed. Anna approached slowly, her footsteps quiet, measured. So does ignorance. The difference is that ignorance kills everyone else too. The cadet looked down, heat rising in her cheeks. Anna tilted her head slightly. Report to me tomorrow, 600 hours. Bring your gear. Torres blinked. Am I being reassigned? No, Anna said. You're being re-educated. The next morning, dawn barely touched the horizon when Torres entered the simulation bay. The place was empty except for Anna, who stood barefoot beside a holotable, calibrating the environment manually. Her prosthetics hummed softly as she adjusted the simulation's sensory grid. Torres hesitated. You wanted me here, ma'am. Anna nodded. Today you're not running the gauntlet, you're walking it. Torres frowned. Walking it. Anna handed her a headset. No weapons, no comms, no HUD overlays. You'll move through blind. You'll listen, observe, and map every sound you hear. Nothing else. Ma'am, with respect, that's uncomfortable, Anna finished for her. Good, growth usually is. The exercise began. The simulation chamber shifted around them, corridors reconfiguring, walls folding like steel origami. Torres stepped cautiously, the soft echoes of her boots bouncing in the dark. Somewhere in the shadows, faint footsteps mimicked hers, out of sync by a heartbeat. "Trust your instincts," Anna's voice came through softly, filtered through the simulation speakers. "Don't chase sound, let sound chase you." Torres turned sharply, "Nothing." Then a whisper, not words, just breath. She spun again, heart pounding. The noise vanished. Minutes passed like hours. She felt lost, disoriented. Then, faintly, she sensed a pattern, a rhythm beneath the silence. The air shifted differently before each reconfiguration. She froze, counted, waited. When the wall ahead of her moved, she was already stepping aside. Anna's voice faintly approving, "Better." When the simulation ended, Torres collapsed to her knees, drenched in sweat. That wasn't combat. Anna approached, handing her a towel. "Everything is combat. You just learned the invisible kind." Torres looked up, confused. "Invisible?" Anna met her gaze evenly. "The fight before the fight, the one that happens in your head." Over the next weeks, Anna began training Torres personally, not through drills but through experiences. Every session was different. One day blindfolded navigation. Another day silent observation of cadet drills from the rafters above. Sometimes they'd simply sit in the empty control room, and Anna would ask questions that sounded more like riddles. "What's the loudest weapon on a battlefield?" she asked one morning. Torres thought, "A machine gun." Anna shook her head. "Ego." Torres frowned. "And the quietest?" "Discipline," Anna said simply. The lessons were unconventional, but something began to change in Torres. She spoke less, watched more. Her movements grew economical, purposeful. Evans noticed. During squad exercises, she no longer rushed into engagements. She waited, read the terrain, and struck when it mattered. He approached Anna one afternoon after watching Torres dismantle a scenario in record time. "You've made her dangerous," he said quietly. Anna glanced at him. "No, she made herself dangerous when she stopped proving she was." He smiled faintly. "You ever gonna admit you like teaching?" "I don't teach," she said. "I remind." The legend of Nix continued to grow quietly in the background, not from Anna herself, but through the cadets. They started repeating fragments of her philosophy as mantras: observe first, act second, silence leads to, adapt before pride does. They pinned a single page to the main notice board, the old simulation score from Alpha Squad's failure. No explanation, no names, just numbers. 6 red icons. 0 survivors. A timestamp. 4 minutes 17 seconds. Every cadet who passed that board felt it, a reminder written in data, not ink. Evans began each briefing under that same board, tapping it once before speaking. "That," he'd say, "is the sound of arrogance dying." The cadets laughed nervously, but they understood. Torres' transformation caught Colonel Davies' attention. He called Anna to his office. "She's different," he said. "Quieter, smarter, more dangerous." Anna nodded. "She's learning to think before she moves." Davies studied her for a moment. "You see yourself in her?" A pause, then a small restrained smile. "Maybe." "Careful," Davies said. "Reflection can turn into replacement." Anna met his gaze. "That's the goal, isn't it? For them to become better than us." He chuckled softly. "You sound like an idealist." "I sound like someone who's seen the cost of not being one," she replied. Late that night, the academy was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Anna sat in the observation deck alone again, the lights dim, her reflection faint against the glass. Below her, the crucible slept, silent steel and shadow. Her data pad rested beside her, still glowing with the after-action report from Torres' latest run. But she wasn't looking at it. Her eyes were distant, somewhere far beyond the academy walls. She flexed her prosthetic knee absent-mindedly, the carbon plates shifting with a soft mechanical sigh. Sometimes, in moments like this, phantom pain whispered through her, not in her legs but in her memory. A night years ago, the smell of dust and cordite, the scream of mortars, the flash that erased everything below her knees but spared her life. They called her a hero. She never felt like one. She only remembered the silence that followed the blast, that strange, peaceful quiet that seemed to ask a question she could never answer. Why you? Why alive? The answer, she decided long ago, wasn't survival. It was purpose. Now, watching Torres' progress, she felt something close to peace. Not pride, not closure, just continuity. The mission wasn't over. It had simply changed shape. When dawn broke, the crucible lights flickered back to life, and a new training cycle began. The academy was no longer a place of noise. It was a place of quiet storms, calm faces concealing sharp minds. Every cadet who walked its halls carried a piece of Sharma's lesson within them, that the most dangerous warrior is the one who doesn't need to be seen. And somewhere among them, a young cadet named Torres walked a little taller, not because of pride, but because she'd learned how to move through the world the way her mentor did. Silently, deliberately, and utterly unstoppable. Because the greatest victories aren't always loud. Sometimes they sound like footsteps in the dark, sure, steady, and unforgettable. The crucible wasn't supposed to feel like a battlefield. But that morning it did. Every corridor buzzed with tension. The air felt different, heavier, charged, alive. The cadets moved with an edge in their steps, whispering as they passed each other. Today wasn't just another exercise. It was the gauntlet exhibition. A live demonstration, one squad, one instructor, one chance to prove that the academy's new methods worked. For most, that meant Sharma. She didn't want the attention, but the moment Colonel Davies announced the event, she knew it was inevitable. Command needed proof. Proof that intellect could outfight instinct, that adaptability could defeat aggression. And proof that the woman with carbon fiber legs wasn't just a myth, she was doctrine. Evans stood outside the control room, clipboard in hand, running final checks. His tone was quieter now, but his posture carried confidence. All systems green, he said. Visuals, comms, sensory feed, all clean. Anna adjusted the neural interface gloves over her hands. The hum of the simulation grid vibrated faintly underfoot. "You sure you want her leading?" Evans asked, glancing through the glass toward the squad staging area. "She's still green." Anna followed his gaze. Cadet Lena Torres stood at the front of her team, helmet tucked under one arm, face calm but eyes burning with focus. "She's ready," Anna said. Evans raised an eyebrow. "You said that same tone when you wrecked my entire career, remember?" A rare flicker of amusement touched her lips. "And you're better for it." He snorted softly. "Can't argue that." From the observation deck, Colonel Davies watched as the audience filed in senior officers, tactical instructors, and even a few members of the brass. The event was being recorded, streamed across the defense network. Davies wasn't nervous, but he knew this was bigger than a simulation. This was a statement. When Anna entered the deck, the crowd hushed. She didn't look at them. She moved to her console, posture composed, hands precise. "Scenario loaded," she said. "Urban grid, asymmetric conditions. Objective, extract down pilot before enemy reinforcement window closes." Davies nodded. "Parameters." "Unpredictable." He almost smiled. "Of course." Inside the arena, Torres and her team crouched behind cover as the digital city materialized. High-rise fragments, blown-out storefronts, smoke curling through the simulated air. The voice came through their comms, calm, steady. "Instructor Sharma online, you may begin." Torres took a breath. "Copy that, Alpha Team, move on me." They advanced, not recklessly but cautiously, methodically. Every doorway was checked, Every angle watched. Evans leaned closer to the observation glass. "She's mirroring your packing," he said. Anna didn't respond. On the tactical display, blue icons moved with fluid synchronization. No wasted energy, no shouting, just movement born from awareness. Halfway to the extraction point, static whispered through Tor's headset. Then nothing. She froze, comms down. Evans frowned, system fault. Anna's voice was calm, no intentional. Evans turned, "You cut her comms. She has to learn what silence feels like." Torres didn't panic. She switched to hand signals, guiding her team into cover. Then a sudden movement, a red icon appeared on their flank. Enemy contact. Gunfire cracked through the simulation. The squad reacted instantly, not chaotically but strategically. Torres used debris to redirect fire lanes, guiding her team through alternate angles. Davies watched, impressed. She's adapting faster than projected. Anna's gaze was locked on the feed. She's listening with her eyes. The squad pushed forward, clearing each section with smooth precision. Then came the pivot, a faint vibration through the grid as the simulation shifted. The building ahead exploded into a cascade of smoke and dust. "Ambush," Evans muttered. "They're pinned." On screen, Torres dove behind a wall, dust clouding her visor. She couldn't see, couldn't hear. All she had was instinct and Anna's voice echoing in her memory. "Don't chase sound. Let sound chase you." She waited, listened. Footsteps, too heavy for a single soldier. She pointed upward, "Ambush from above." Her team followed instantly, redirecting fire. 3 hostiles down. Evans exhaled. "She's reading patterns just like you." Anna's expression stayed unreadable. She's seeing what isn't shown. But something in the simulation changed, a flicker across the display. Anna's hand hesitated for a second, a ghost signal, not part of her design. Evans noticed, that shouldn't be there. Anna's eyes narrowed. She typed a rapid sequence. The interference pulsed again, this time stronger. Then she froze. The data tag read, "Operation Spartan Hammer Archive Layer Detected." For a moment, her breath caught. The name hit her like a memory breaking the surface after years underwater. The screen flashed, not with the simulated city, but with imagery she hadn't seen in years. The desert ridge, the burning horizon, the chaos of that night. The night she lost her legs. Evans saw the color drain from her face. "Anna." She didn't answer. Her hand hovered over the console. "Ma'am, talk to me. What's happening?" It's a data bleed," she whispered. "Someone layered an old mission template into the system's memory." The simulation shifted violently. Torres' environment began to distort, the city melting into dunes and concrete ruins. Explosions echoed, the audio filled with screaming. "What is this?" Torres shouted through the comm. Anna's voice came through, steady but low. "Keep calm, new environment, adapt to it." But inside, her heart was pounding. She knew this map, she lived it. The simulation had merged with her trauma. The observers watched in confusion as the battlefield changed from urban warfare to a desert kill zone. Davies turned sharply. "Sharma, what's going on?" Her fingers flew across the console. "System error, sir. Old classified operation, embedded data leak." Evans looked at her, realization dawning. "That's your op, isn't it?" Anna didn't deny it. The field below erupted in chaos. The cadets' tactical overlays glitched. Landmines, drone fire, sandstorm interference, all relics of the mission that had nearly killed her. Tor's voice cut through the static. "Command, I need instructions." Anna closed her eyes for a second. Every instinct told her to end the simulation, to pull the plug before it spiraled. But then she saw Tor's position on the screen, pinned behind the same kind of ridge Anna once bled out on. If she ended it now, Torres would learn fear. If she guided her through it, she'd learn strength. "Hold position," Anna said, voice steady again. You have visual on drone signatures. Negative, too much sand. Listen, Anna said. Drones hum at 3.7 kilohertz. Filter out everything below that. You'll hear them before you see them. Torres hesitated, then closed her eyes inside her helmet. The sound emerged faintly, a vibration under the wind. She turned her rifle upward. 3 shots, 3 drones down. The observation deck fell silent. Evans whispered, "She's flying blind and still hitting targets." Anna's eyes softened. "She's not blind, she's learning to see like I did." The simulation's chaos peaked. Red icons surrounding Torres' team from all directions. Evans leaned forward. "They're surrounded." Anna didn't move. "Not surrounded," she said quietly, "just centered." Torres steadied her breathing. "Sharma," she said into the calm, "they're everywhere, advice." Anna paused. For a second her mind flickered back to that night. Her own team trapped, radio silent, the explosion that took her legs but left her mission complete. She swallowed hard. "When you can't win by force," she said, "win by illusion." Torres hesitated. Then she reached into her tactical pack and pulled out a flare standard issue for extraction. Instead of signaling upward, she fired it across the sand. The flare burst midair, blinding half the enemy's sensors. Then she moved fast, using the flash to reposition her team behind a ruined structure. Evans grinned. "That's your move. She's copying your distraction pattern." Anna allowed herself one breath of relief. Moments later, the simulation timer hit 0. Objective complete. The feed froze. The arena fell silent. When the lights came up, the cadets pulled off their helmets, blinking in disbelief. Their suits were soaked with sweat, their faces streaked with dust. Torres looked up toward the control room, chest heaving. Anna watched from behind the glass. Their eyes met across the distance. No words, just a silent understanding between teacher and student, 2 soldiers separated by experience but bound by the same code. Colonel Davies turned to Anna. "That wasn't the demonstration we planned." "No, sir," she said quietly. "It was better." He studied her for a moment. "That mission data, you think it was just a glitch?" She shook her head. "No, the system remembers everything." Then softly, almost to herself, "So do I." Later, when the crowd had gone and the lights dimmed, Anna sat alone in the control room, staring at the empty arena. The smell of ozone still lingered, faint, metallic, familiar. Evans entered quietly. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. That mission, it wasn't supposed to resurface. He leaned against the console. Maybe it needed to. Anna's gaze remained distant. "I buried those memories for a reason." Evans folded his arms. "You think burying them made you stronger?" "No," she said softly. "It just made me quieter." He nodded slowly. "Maybe that's not the same thing anymore." They stood there for a while, 2 soldiers from different wars, both haunted by what they'd survived. Evans broke the silence first. "Torres asked if she could debrief with you personally. Said she wants to understand what really happened in there." Anna looked at him sharply. "She doesn't need to know that." "She already does," Evans said. "She just doesn't have the words for it yet." Anna exhaled, the sound long and tired. "Tell her 700, observation deck." Evans nodded once and left her there, the dim blue lights reflecting off the carbon sheen of her prosthetics. She stayed long after he'd gone, replaying the simulation, frame by frame, moment by moment, until the ghost of that old battlefield faded from her screen. But deep inside she knew it wasn't gone. It never would be. And for the first time in years, she wondered if the ghosts weren't there to haunt her, but to remind her why she'd survived it all. Because survival isn't victory. It's permission to teach what pain once taught you. The rain hadn't stopped all night. It tapped gently against the academy's glass corridors, a soft percussion that filled the silence between shifts. The crucible stood empty, its walls folded in, lights dimmed to standby. Outside the observation deck, fog drifted across the training grounds like smoke that refused to dissipate. At 700 sharp, Cadet Lena Torres arrived. Helmet tucked under her arm, uniform pressed, eyes steady. She hesitated only once before entering. Sharma was already there. She stood by the massive observation window overlooking the empty arena, the faint glow from the control consoles reflecting in her eyes. Her prosthetic legs gleamed dully in the half-light, not as symbols of tragedy, but as tools, forged and functional. Torres cleared her throat quietly. "Ma'am, reporting as ordered." Anna didn't turn immediately. She let the silence breathe between them, that rare kind of silence that forces truth to surface on its own. "Sit," Anna said finally. Torres obeyed, her movements crisp, respectful, but edged with uncertainty. She had faced gunfire, exhaustion, even simulated death, but not this. The quiet presence of her instructor felt heavier than any firefight. Anna's voice came low, even. "You performed well yesterday." "Thank you, ma'am." "But you weren't supposed to." Torres blinked. "Ma'am." That mission, the desert map, the one that appeared halfway through, wasn't part of the exercise. It was something else. Torres leaned forward. "A glitch." Anna exhaled slowly. "A memory." The cadet didn't understand at first. "I don't follow." Anna turned now, facing her directly. "Operation Spartan Hammer. I was there. That map you fought through, that was real." Torres' eyes widened. "You mean?" "I mean it wasn't fiction," Anna interrupted softly. "It was extracted from a classified archive. That's the battlefield where I lost my legs." Silence. The cadet sat frozen. The weight of the revelation settled slowly, layer by layer. She had fought inside her mentor's trauma and survived. Anna moved closer to the glass, her reflection a faint silhouette against the stormlight. "I wasn't supposed to walk away from that mission," she said. "None of us were." She paused. The memory flickered behind her eyes, the flash of light, the shockwave, the burning sand, the smell of gunpowder and blood mixing in the wind. "SEAL Team 3 had been ambushed during extraction," she continued quietly. "We were their Overwatch unit, 4 of us. Task Force 11. When the comms went dead, we lost contact, but we didn't stop transmitting. We redirected power from our optics into the uplink, hopping to buy them 30 seconds of cover." Torres swallowed. "You bought them more than that, didn't you?" Anna nodded faintly. "Long enough for them to leave, not long enough for us." Her eyes drifted back to the rain-smeared window. "I was hit in the second blast. Both legs gone before I hit the ground. I stayed conscious, long enough to keep firing until the last of the team was out. After that, just noise. Then nothing." Torres hesitated. "They said you held off 100 hostiles alone." "Exaggeration," Anna said softly. "It was closer to 60. Her tone was neutral, matter of fact, the way soldiers sometimes speak when emotion is too dangerous to touch. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain filled the silence again. Finally, Torres whispered, "Ma'am, if I can ask, why keep it buried? Everyone here reveres what you did. That's not shame, that's legacy." Anna's gaze didn't move from the window. "Legacy is a word people use to make pain sound noble. I wasn't brave, cadet. I was stubborn. I didn't die when I was supposed to. That's all." Torres shook her head. "With respect, that's not all. You're standing here teaching us." "Walking," Anna corrected dryly, glancing at her prosthetics. "Sort of." That small flicker of humor, fragile, fleeting, passed between them like a shared secret. Anna returned her gaze to Torres. "You saw what happened in that simulation. You adapted. You found stillness inside chaos. That's what I wanted you to learn." Torres frowned slightly. "To fight like you did." "No," Anna said softly. "To think like I didn't." The words hung in the air. Torres frowned. "I don't understand." Anna stepped closer, her voice lowering. I was so focused on mission success that I stopped listening to myself, to my instincts. I turned into a machine, efficient, obedient, expendable. When the blast hit, I realized I'd spent years teaching others how to survive but never learned how to forgive myself for surviving. Torres' throat tightened. You think survival was wrong. I think survival is just unfinished work, Anna said. The words hit Torres harder than she expected. She'd never heard war described like that, not as glory or failure, but as continuance. Anna gestured toward the silent arena below. That's why I came here, not to teach war, to teach what comes after it. Evans entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. He hesitated when he saw the look on both their faces, that rare, fragile transparency soldiers avoid showing in daylight. Bad time? He asked softly. Anna motioned him in. We were discussing ghosts. He raised an eyebrow, setting 1 cup beside her. Yours or hers? Both, Anna said. He nodded. That tracks. Torres gave a small, respectful smile. Sergeant Evans. He nodded back. Cadet Torres, nice work yesterday. You scared the hell out of half the command staff. Torres blushed slightly. Just doing what I was trained to do. Evans smirked. That's exactly what they said about her. Anna shot him a look. Flattery is not a leadership tool, Sergeant. Didn't say it was. Just accurate, he replied. Torres looked between them, realizing, perhaps for the first time, how deeply respect could exist between 2 people who once stood on opposite sides of arrogance. Evans took a sip of his coffee and leaned against the console. So what happens now? Anna's eyes returned to the rain. Now, we rebuild the program, remove the noise, integrate adaptive decision theory, make sure every cadet learns to see before they shoot. Evans tilted his head. And you gonna finally take some leave. Anna gave a dry laugh. And do what? Sit still. I don't think that's in the manual. He chuckled, fair. Torres watched them, the quiet banter of 2 veterans who'd fought their wars and somehow learned to live after them. She wondered if she'd ever have that kind of peace. Anna must have seen the thought cross her face. You will, she said softly, one day. Torres blinked. Ma'am. You're thinking about the cost. Everyone does, eventually. But the cost only matters if you forget what it bought you. Torres swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. And what did it buy you, ma'am? Anna looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment the instructor's composure cracked just slightly. Perspective, she said. The kind that doesn't vanish when the gunfire stops. That evening the academy gathered for a formal review. The auditorium was full, every cadet, every instructor, Colonel Davies at the podium. He spoke of progress, innovation, the transformation of doctrine, but everyone knew the real story. It wasn't about strategy or technology. It was about a woman who had turned silence into strength and reshaped the entire culture around her. When he called her name, the room rose as one. Anna walked slowly to the stage, the rhythmic click of her prosthetics echoing through the hall. It wasn't applause she heard, it was respect, a collective acknowledgement of something beyond victory. Davies handed her a small plaque, simple, understated, for redefining what it means to fight. She accepted it with a nod, then turned to face the sea of cadets. Her eyes swept across the room, past the faces of the ones who doubted, the ones who believed, and the ones who hadn't decided yet. She didn't give a speech. She didn't need to. After a pause, she said quietly, "Strength isn't how loud you shout. It's how steady you stay when everything else falls apart." Then she saluted, short, crisp, absolute, and walked off the stage. Later that night, as the academy lights dimmed and the corridors emptied, Anna sat alone again in the crucible control room. The rain had stopped. The world outside was washed clean, silent. She powered on the simulation console one last time, scrolling to the archived operation log, Spartan Hammer. The file still bore its redacted sections, its missing names, its coded references. But near the bottom, one line blinked, a note added after the mission, by someone she'd never met. Survivor identified, Nix. Status alive. Recommendation: reassignment to Training Command, Psychological Warfare Division. Anna read it twice, then she closed the file. She realized something then, something that had always eluded her. She hadn't been reassigned because of her wounds. She'd been reassigned because someone saw her potential before she did. She whispered the words under her breath, as if confessing them to the ghosts still walking the desert of her memory. They didn't end me there, they redirected me. The thought didn't heal her, but it steadied her. Outside, Torres stood in the corridor, watching through the glass. She didn't interrupt. She just stood there, studying her mentor, the stillness, the strength, the quiet pulse of purpose that seemed to anchor her to the earth. She realized in that moment that Anna Sharma wasn't teaching them how to win. She was teaching them how to live after losing. And maybe that was the harder lesson. The next morning, as dawn broke over the training fields, a new quote appeared on the Academy's main entrance display. No author credited. True warriors aren't measured by what they survive, but by what they build from what's left. Every cadet who passed that gate read it in silence. None of them needed to ask who wrote it. They already knew. Because Anna Sharma didn't need monuments or medals. Her monument was movement, in every student who learned from her, in every soldier who carried her lesson into the world. And though the ghosts of Spartan Hammer would never truly leave her, they no longer haunted her. They stood beside her now, watching, listening, silent but proud. Because legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what keeps walking beside you. Sometimes silence threatens power. It had been 3 months since the Gauntlet exhibition, and Anna Sharma's name was now synonymous with precision. Every cadet who passed through the academy quoted her methods, repeated her phrases, and treated her lessons like scripture. But outside the academy's walls, whispers had started to spread, not about her legend, about her control. They called it the quiet doctrine, a new approach to command that emphasized restraint, observation, and psychological dominance over aggression. It worked. The results were undeniable, but to the old guard it was unsettling. Command didn't like what they couldn't measure. Colonel Davies sat in his office, sunlight slanting across his desk, hands clasped in thought. Across from him sat 2 men in dark uniforms, visiting officers from Central Command. Their badges gleamed, their expressions unreadable. "She's redefining your entire training system," one said. "That's impressive, but unconventional." Davies kept his voice neutral. "Unconventional wins wars." The other officer leaned forward. "The brass believes her skills are being underutilized. With her background, Task Force 11, Operation Spartan Hammer, she could contribute more on active assignment." Davies' gaze sharpened. "She is contributing. Every cadet she trains becomes a force multiplier. That's the point." The man in the gray uniform shook his head. "Respectfully, sir, the point of soldiers like Sharma isn't to teach. It's to fight." Davies leaned back slowly. "You want to send her back out there?" "Her performance metrics are off the charts," the officer replied. "If she's this effective behind a console, imagine what she could do leading a Black Ops unit again." Davies stared at them both for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "You imagine it, because she's done imagining war." The officers exchanged glances, then stood. "You have your orders, Colonel. She's to report for assessment within 72 hours. When they left, the office felt colder. Anna didn't flinch when Davies told her. She just listened. "Assessment," she repeated. He nodded grimly. "They're testing all Tier 1 operatives for redeployment. You were flagged." She looked at him evenly. "You didn't fight it." "I tried." Her gaze softened slightly. "You knew this would happen eventually." Davies sighed. You've built something here that scares them. Quiet soldiers make loud generals nervous. Anna smiled faintly. Then they'll love what I say during assessment. Davies studied her. You're not going to pass it, are you? No, she said calmly. I'm going to fail it deliberately. Evans found her that evening in the control room, calibrating the gauntlet for the next rotation. You're leaving, he said flatly. For a few days. They're recalling you. She didn't answer. Evans shook his head. You're not built for politics. They'll want you to perform to prove something. You don't perform, you teach. She gave him a small smile. That's the problem. They still think I'm a weapon. He frowned, and you're not. Her eyes flicked toward the window, where the faint reflection of her prosthetic legs shimmered against the glass. No, I'm what happens after one is used. Evans looked down, the words cutting deeper than he expected. He straightened. Whatever happens, you've got this place in your name now. You've changed it. Nobody can unwrite that. Anna nodded. Then it's your job to protect it while I'm gone. Evans blinked. Me. Who else? She asked, turning back to her console. You already learned the hard way. The next morning, Torres met her on the training field. The air was cool, the horizon still silver with dawn. I heard, Torres said softly, you're being sent back. Anna shook her head. No, just assessed. That's the same thing. Anna studied her, the confidence, the sharpness, the fire she'd seen months ago now tempered into something calmer. You've grown, she said. Torres swallowed, because you taught me to listen. Anna tilted her head slightly. Then listen to this. Command doesn't define you. Doctrine doesn't save you. You save you. Torres nodded, but her eyes were wet. Ma'am, if they redeploy you. They won't, Anna interrupted quietly. They'll realize I don't fit their definition of combat anymore. Torres hesitated, and if they do? Anna smiled faintly. Then I'll teach them too. The assessment facility was a sterile glass monolith rising from the desert like an accusation. Anna entered without ceremony, no escort, no entourage, just the sound of her carbon fiber steps echoing off marble floors. The panel of officers waited in a semicircular room lined with digital screens. They offered polite nods, clinical smiles. Ms. Sharma, one began, you understand the purpose of this review. To measure my suitability for redeployment, she replied evenly. Correct. We'll begin with a tactical simulation. Same conditions as your previous evaluations. Anna's gaze lingered on the screens. You rebuilt Spartan Hammer. A flicker of discomfort crossed the officer's face. We thought it appropriate, given your familiarity. Her voice cooled. Familiarity doesn't mean comfort. Nevertheless, she stepped onto the platform. The lights dimmed. The desert appeared, wind whipping through burning wreckage, distant gunfire echoing like memory. The simulation began with precision. Anna moved through the terrain like a ghost, every motion calculated. She anticipated threats before they materialized, disarmed ambushes, rerouted drone signals of flawless execution. The observers watched, impressed. One whispered, still Tier 1 material. Then halfway through, Anna stopped. She stood in the middle of the desert map, wind blowing virtual sand around her, and powered down her rifle. The holographic enemies advanced. She didn't move, didn't aim. One officer frowned. Why is she? Keep watching, Davies muttered from the observation deck above, arms crossed. Anna took a deep breath. Then she said quietly, so softly the sensors barely caught it, end program. The simulation froze. The officer pressed his comm. Operator, continue the exercise. The system didn't respond. The command terminal flickered. Anna had overridden their access. The desert faded, replaced by a blank white space, her doing. On screen, she looked directly into the observation camera. Combat isn't what I do, she said calmly. It's what I survived. You're asking me to repeat it when I've already learned its only real lesson." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "The mission," she continued, "isn't to keep creating soldiers. It's to create thinkers, fighters who end wars before they start." The oldest officer leaned toward his mic. "You're refusing assessment." "I'm redefining it," she said simply. Then she stepped out of the simulation chamber, leaving the system frozen behind her, a desert without movement. By the time she returned to the academy, word had already spread. No one knew the details, but everyone understood the outcome. She had walked into Central Command's test and walked out untouched. Evans met her at the gate. "You broke their machine," he said. "Only the parts that needed breaking." He grinned. "You're becoming a bad influence." "Good," she said. "They could use one." That night, Torres led her first squad simulation as acting team commander. The room was filled with quiet tension, cadets waiting for instructions. Evans stood beside the console, watching. He didn't say a word. Torres took a breath. "Alpha Squad," she said. "Objective is adaptive defense, minimal engagement, maximum observation." The cadets nodded. The simulation began. 10 minutes in, everything went wrong. The system glitched mid-run, environmental feedback loops, static interference, simulated explosions collapsing half the map. The cadets froze. Tor's heart pounded. Her instincts screamed pause the sim. But then, faintly, she heard Anna's voice in her head, "Adapt before pride does." She steadied her breathing. "Squad, reset visual range. Focus on heat signatures only. Use the chaos its cover." They moved, calm and silent. Within minutes, they'd reversed the scenario, turning confusion into control. Evans smiled from the deck. "She's got it," he murmured. When the run ended, Torres removed her helmet and looked up at the observation window. Anna stood there, watching, silent, approving. It wasn't pride in her eyes, it was peace. Later, as the academy quieted, Anna stood outside on the terrace, the desert wind brushing against her face. Evans joined her, 2 cups of tea in hand. "They still want you back on the field," he said. She sipped her tea. "Then they'll have to catch me first." He chuckled. "You ever think you'll stop fighting?" She looked out at the horizon where dawn was just beginning to break. "I have," she said softly. "I just changed the battlefield." Evans nodded, "And won." She smiled faintly. "Winning, not the point. The point is making sure they never have to fight my war again." He studied her for a moment. This woman who had lost her legs but not her ground, who had turned pain into principle. "You know," he said, "I used to think teaching was for the ones who couldn't hack it out there. And now I know it's the opposite. You have to survive hell first to be patient enough to teach." Anna looked at him, and for the first time since they'd met, she laughed. A small, genuine sound. It startled him. "Don't get used to it," she said. He smiled, too late. In the stillness before sunrise, the academy's lights flickered on one by one, glowing across the vast compound. Inside those walls, generations of cadets were already training differently, quieter, sharper, wiser. Each of them unknowingly carried a piece of her philosophy, woven into every reflex and every decision. Anna Sharma didn't need to be on the battlefield anymore. She had already changed it. Because some wars aren't fought with weapons. They're fought with understanding, and the courage to stay silent when everyone else is shouting. The past doesn't knock. It just walks in, wearing an old face you weren't ready to see. The sun had barely risen when Anna entered the central hall. The morning drills echoed faintly from the training yards, cadets shouting coordinates, boots striking rhythm with discipline. Everything was in order until she saw Colonel Davies standing near the entrance with a visitor. The man turned as she approached. For a second, the world narrowed. It was Captain Miles Rourke. He hadn't changed much, older, sharper around the eyes, but unmistakably the same. The last time she'd seen that face, it had been covered in desert ash and blood, fading from view as the medevac door closed. "Anna," he said quietly. Her reply was a breath more than a word. "Rurk." Davies cleared his throat. "He's here as part of Central Command's audit, logistics review for the new training protocol." Rurk nodded, and to see an old friend. Anna's jaw tightened slightly. "We were comrades, not friends." Davies caught the tension immediately. "I'll give you two a minute." He stepped away, leaving them in the soft hum of the hall's morning silence. They walked together along the corridor, words choosing themselves carefully. "I didn't know you were alive," he said finally. "I didn't know you were either," she replied. He smiled faintly. "They told us you didn't make it." "They told me the same about you." For a while, only the sound of her steps echoed, soft metal clicks on the floor. Rurk glanced down at her prosthetics. "You still moving better than half the men I trained." She met his gaze. "That's not a compliment I need." He nodded slowly. "Fair." They reached the observation deck, empty, quiet, overlooking the simulation grid below. Rurk leaned against the railing, studying it. "So this is what you built," he said. "This is what I rebuilt," she corrected. He looked at her. "You turned training into therapy." "I turned violence into reflection." "That's therapy," he said softly. Anna looked out at the arena. "I didn't bring you here for closure." "I didn't come for that." "Then why?" He hesitated. "Because I found something you should see." From his pocket he pulled a small data drive. "Recovered after Spartan Hammer, your file, your uplink logs." Her breath stilled. "Those were wiped." "So they said, turns out they were." He placed the drive on the console. "I read them," he said quietly. "Your transmission never stopped even after you were hit. You gave coordinates until your heart rate flatlined on the monitor. You didn't just save us. You saved everyone who came after." Anna didn't touch the drive. "Then why show me?" "Because you keep teaching people what you learned from pain. But maybe it's time they learned what you earned from it." She didn't answer. Her hands trembled slightly before she hid them behind her back. Rurk stepped closer. "You can keep pretending this place doesn't need heroes, Anna, but the truth is it does. They need you to admit you were one." Her voice hardened. "I was." "Then what were you?" She turned toward him, eyes burning with quiet restraint. "Alive, that's all." Down in the crucible, Torres was running a live evaluation. It wasn't supposed to be complex, standard two-squad maneuvering under simulated electronic interference. Evans monitored from the deck, arms crossed. "Steady, Torres," he said through the mic. "You're too far on the right flank." "Copy that," she replied, adjusting. Suddenly the power flickered, then darkness. The entire grid went offline. Evans straightened. "System fault." "Unclear," said a tech operator. "Backup circuits aren't responding." Then a siren blared, not simulation sound, real. Davies' voice came through the comms. "Lockdown protocol. Reactor core overload in maintenance sector 7. Evans swore under his breath. The crucible ran partially off a microreactor for power simulations. Nothing lethal, but unstable if misaligned. Tor's voice came through the static. "Sir, we're sealed inside." Evans rushed to the control board. "Manual override." "No response," the tech shouted. Back in the observation deck, alarms echoed. Red lights flashed through the hall. Rurk and Anna turned toward the sound. Davies appeared over comms. "System malfunction in the crucible. Power surge locked the lower decks." Anna's eyes narrowed. "How bad?" "Containment's holding, but internal sensors are dead. We've got cadets trapped inside." "Who's leading?" "Torres," Davies said grimly. Anna didn't hesitate. "Open the manual access tunnel." "Sharma, the grid's volatile." "Then it's familiar territory," she said. Rurk moved beside her. You're not going alone. She gave him a sharp look. You don't take orders from me anymore. He met her glare evenly. Then I'll just follow. Davies sighed. You've got 5 minutes before safety seals lock completely. Anna nodded once, then moved. The maintenance corridors beneath the crucible were narrow and stifling, filled with the hum of active wiring. Sparks hissed overhead. The air was hot, burning with static. Rourke followed close behind, flashlight slicing through the dark. You really built all this on top of a live grid? He asked. Controlled chaos teaches control, she replied. Guess it's teaching you too. Ahead, a pressure door blocked their path, glowing red with heat warnings. Anna knelt, typing rapid commands into the access panel. Still hacking your way through, Rourke said with a faint grin. Still talking too much, she muttered. The panel clicked. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside the crucible, Torres crouched near the generator housing, her team clustered behind makeshift cover. The lights flickered wildly, throwing shadows across the room. Evans's voice crackled faintly through damaged speakers. Torres, can you hear me? Barely, she shouted. Systems are overheating. We've got 8 minutes before the failsafe triggers. She turned to the youngest cadet, a boy barely 19. His hands shook as he tried to stabilize a coolant valve. Breathe, Torres said, steadying him. Don't fight the fear, use it. He nodded, following her rhythm. The heat rose, the metal floor trembled, then a voice behind them. Nice form, Anna said. Torres spun around, disbelief flickering into relief. Ma'am. Anna stepped through the haze, followed by Rourke. The blue glow from the reactor reflected in her eyes, cold and steady. Evans said you were sealed in, Torres said. I prefer options, Anna replied. Rourke examined the containment display. Pressure's building faster than predicted. This thing's gonna vent hard. Anna moved to the panel. Manual release. Offline. She studied the structure, circuits, conduits, coolant lines. Her fingers traced the panel like reading a language only she understood. Ma'am, Torres said quietly. Anna didn't answer right away. Then she said, Torres, get your squad to the far chamber. Secure the door behind you. I can help. That's in order. Torres hesitated, eyes searching Anna's face. You're not coming with us. Anna looked at her, calm, absolute. This system's neural lock reads biopatterns. It needs a human override inside the chamber. Once it resets, containment stabilizes. Someone has to stay. Torres' breath caught. You'll be trapped. Anna gave her the faintest smile. I've been trapped before. Rourke stepped forward. No, I stay. You're the reason this place exists. Anna shook her head. And you're the reason it needs to keep existing. He started to argue, but her hand gripped his arm, firm and final. Miles, don't take away my choice to end something right for once. He froze, jaw tight. Then, with a resigned nod, he helped her reroute the controls. Anna turned to Torres. You trained for calm and chaos. This is it. Lead them out. Torres' eyes shimmered. Ma'am, please. Go. Torres hesitated one last second, then saluted sharply. Yes, ma'am. She gathered her team and disappeared into the far tunnel. As the door sealed, Rourke turned to Anna. You've got maybe 30 seconds before that valve pops. Then move, she said, fingers flying across the panel. The control interface glowed crimson, then blue. The containment lines pulsed, stabilizing, cooling. The hum evened out. Anna exhaled, one hand braced against the console. Rourke watched her. You did it. She shook her head. We did. He gave her a small, quiet smile, then pressed the emergency latch. The chamber door groaned open. Go, she said. Not without you. I said go. He hesitated, then stepped out just as the system flashed green, stabilized. The roar of pressure faded into stillness. Anna stayed inside a moment longer, breathing slowly, feeling the vibration of the floor calm beneath her. Then she whispered to herself, "Not trapped, just finished." She stepped out. Hours later, when the lockdown cleared, the academy was silent. The crucible lights returned, one by one flickering back to life. Davies stood near the command center as Anna emerged from the tunnel, covered in dust, sweat streaking her face, but standing. Torres rushed forward. "Ma'am." Anna raised a hand. "Everyone accounted for." "All safe." Anna nodded. "Good, then the system worked." Torres looked at her with awe, but also something deeper. "You knew it would. You trusted us." Anna smiled faintly. "That's the point." Rourke appeared behind her, exhaustion written across his face. "You still find trouble wherever you go." "Not trouble," Anna said quietly. "Lessons." He smirked. "Same thing." That night, as the academy slept, Anna returned to her office. The data drive Rourke had given her sat on the desk, untouched. She picked it up, weighed it in her hand, then slid it into the console. The file opened. The recording was faint, damaged by static. Her own voice, years younger, holding position, enemy fire consistent, remaining rounds 3, heart rate steady. "If anyone's hearing this, tell them I didn't break. I adapted." The playback ended. Anna closed her eyes. A single tear traced the scar beneath one eye. Then she whispered, "Message received." Outside, the crucible stood in silence, lights glowing softly under the stars. Torres watched from a distance, her reflection caught in the glass. She knew now what leadership truly meant, not orders, not rank, but presence. Anna had taught her that strength wasn't in survival. It was in returning after survival and choosing to teach instead of hide. Because war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It ends when someone like her decides that peace is worth teaching louder. There are victories that roar. And there are victories that whisper, so quietly the world mistakes them for silence. Anna Sharma had learned to live inside that silence. 3 weeks had passed since the Crucible incident. The academy was running smoother than ever. Systems rebuilt, doctrine rewritten, cadets sharper, calmer, more aware. But the air around headquarters still carried the faint weight of something unspoken, the kind of shift that makes leaders uneasy. Command had been watching, again. Colonel Davies entered her office that morning carrying a sealed envelope. No digital trail, no network trace, just paper. He placed it on her desk. "They're not giving up." Anna didn't open it. "Orders." "Request," Davies said, voice tight. "High Command wants you to attend a closed briefing. Strategic advisory for an upcoming operation. Off the record, of course." She studied him. Spartan-level clearance again. "Higher," he said. "They want to hear your philosophy firsthand. Quiet warfare, psychological offset, the Sharma doctrine, as they're calling it." Her eyes hardened slightly. They renamed restraint into doctrine. Davies exhaled. "They always do. You scare them, Anna, and they admire what they fear." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "And what happens if I say no? Then they'll send someone else to interpret your work, and they won't understand it." Silence filled the room. Finally, she said quietly, "Book the transport." The briefing was held in a fortified underground complex, windowless, soundproofed, sterile. When she entered, the room was already full. High-ranking officers, strategists, advisors from half a dozen divisions. At the center table, a large screen displayed a new operation name, Project Resonant Dawn. Rourke was there too, standing at the back, arms folded. Their eyes met briefly, a silent exchange of understanding. A general at the head of the table gestured for her to sit. "Ms. Sharma, glad you accepted the invitation." "I don't recall being asked," she said evenly. Polite chuckles followed, nervous and forced. The general continued, "We've studied your work at the academy. Impressive results. You've created soldiers who hesitate less, think more, and act without the usual noise. but we're curious. Could that same conditioning be adapted for field application? Anna's expression didn't change. You mean, could I turn silence into a weapon? The man smiled faintly, if necessary. Anna's reply came slow, deliberate. You misunderstand silence, General. It's not absence, it's control. He nodded, scribbling notes. And control is not obedience, she said, awareness. Somewhere down the table, an aide muttered, that's philosophy, not strategy. Anna turned her gaze toward him. Philosophy is strategy if you've lived enough to know the cost of either. The room fell quiet. Rourke watched from the back, a ghost of a grin forming. She wasn't performing, she was teaching again. The general cleared his throat. Very well, hypothetically, if you were to re-enter field service. I wouldn't, Anna interrupted. He blinked. Excuse me. I said I wouldn't, because you're asking the wrong question. She stood slowly, her voice calm but resonant, the kind that filled a room without rising. You keep trying to recycle broken soldiers into new wars, but war doesn't evolve by sending back survivors. It evolves by listening to them. The general frowned. We don't have that luxury, Miss Sharma. Anna looked at him, steady, sharp. You don't have the courage, sir, that's different. The silence that followed was heavy, electrified. Then she picked up her envelope from the table, still sealed, and placed it gently in front of him. Inside are my notes, the entire framework. Use it if you want to train soldiers to end wars instead of ignite them. But if you turn it into another weapon, understand this: silence remembers. Every doctrine you twist eventually speaks again. She turned toward the exit. No salute, no goodbye. Just the quiet rhythm of her steps fading down the hallway, carbon fiber tapping like a metronome of defiance. Rourke caught up with her outside the facility. You just declared war on the people who run wars, he said. Anna gave him a small smile. Then maybe they'll finally understand what it feels like to lose control. He laughed softly. You're still the same. No, she said, just quieter. He nodded. Quieter suits you. They stood in the sunlight for a long moment, two survivors who had stopped running, not because they found peace, but because they finally understood it was okay to stand still. Rourke broke the silence. So what now? Anna looked out at the horizon. Now I go home. Back at the academy, the day was alive with sound, drills, laughter, distant echoes of simulated gunfire. Evans met her by the gate. You were gone less than a day. They already missed you. Good, she said. It means they're not waiting for permission anymore. He smirked. You really told command where to shove it, didn't you? She didn't answer, just kept walking. Torres was leading a new batch of recruits in the crucible. She moved with confidence, calm authority balanced with empathy. Every instruction sounded like something Anna once said, but reshaped in her own tone. When Anna stepped into the observation deck, Torres noticed her immediately. Ma'am, she said through the comm, you're back. Apparently, Anna replied. Torres smiled. You missed the fun. Alpha team managed a 92% cohesion rate. Anna raised an eyebrow. And Beta? 94. Good, keep them competing. Friendly competition, ma'am. Philosophical warfare, Anna said, more dangerous. They both laughed. Quiet, mutual, earned. Later that night, the academy held its annual assembly. Hundreds of cadets stood under the open sky, torches burning along the perimeter. The air shimmered with anticipation. Colonel Davies stepped up to the podium. Tonight, we celebrate a shift not in doctrine but in understanding. This academy has produced warriors before, but now it produces thinkers. He turned toward Anna. Major Sharma, would you care to say a few words? Anna shook her head. They've already heard enough from me. Davies smiled. Then who will speak? Anna's eyes found Torres in the crowd. Her, she said simply. A murmur rippled through the cadets as Torres hesitated, then stepped forward. She walked to the podium, nerves in her breath, pride in her spine. Anna stood beside her, silent but present. Torres looked out at the sea of faces. "When I first came here," she began, "I thought strength meant shouting louder, running faster, hitting harder. Then someone taught me that strength is quieter than all that. It's in knowing when not to pull the trigger, when not to speak, when to listen." She glanced at Anna. "And if you learn that, really learn it, you never stop fighting. You just change what you're fighting for." The cadets stood in silence, the kind of silence that isn't empty, it's sacred. Then applause erupted, thunderous, echoing off the steel and sand. Anna didn't clap, she just smiled. Later, after the crowd dispersed, Anna stood alone on the training field. The night air was cool, the stars bright and distant. Rourke had left earlier, heading back to command with her notes, not as a soldier but as a messenger. Evans had gone to secure the systems for the night. Torres had stayed behind, standing a few paces away, hands folded behind her back. Anna turned slightly. "You did well." Torres smiled. "I just told your story, ma'am." "No," Anna said softly, "you told yours." The younger woman nodded, understanding. "Will you ever tell yours?" Anna looked toward the horizon. "I already did, every time I stopped fighting." The wind picked up, gentle, rhythmic. The flags along the compound fluttered in unison. Anna took one last look at the crucible, the heart of everything she'd built. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, "War teaches you to survive, but peace teaches you to mean it." Torres looked at her, unsure if she was meant to respond. She didn't. Some words weren't meant to be answered. They were meant to be remembered. A week later, a new inscription appeared on the Academy's memorial wall, etched without ceremony, unsigned. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. No one knew who added it. Everyone knew who it belonged to. Months later, deep within a classified bunker, a new protocol circulated through command, labeled simply Silent Warfare Doctrine. It carried no author, but inside its preface were 6 words written in a calm, firm hand. "Teach them how to end it." Back at the academy, the morning sun rose over the training field. The next generation of cadets gathered at dawn, boots aligned, eyes steady, breath synchronized. Torres stood before them, voice clear and grounded. "Begin when ready." And from the shadows of the deck above, unseen but always felt, Anna watched. Not as a commander, not as a survivor, but as proof that silence, when lived fully, can echo louder than war. Because victory isn't the absence of pain. It's the mastery of it. And real warriors don't need noise to be heard. They just need purpose.